محمد وآل محمد صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم. تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون. لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون. إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون. وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون. وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم لمرسلون. قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون. قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين. قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم. قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون. وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون. أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون. إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين. إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون. قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعد من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون. يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون. ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون. وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون. وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها هبا فمنه يأكلون. وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون. سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون. وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مسلمون. والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالأرجون القديم. لا شمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. وآية لهم أن حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم لمثل ما يركبون. وإن نشاء نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين. وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها مورزين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنتم من لو يشاء الله أتمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلى صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا سيئة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون واليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تأكلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فعنا يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون وما نعمره نكس في الخلق أفلا يأكل وما علمناه شعره وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويهك القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا آمن فهم لها مالكون وظللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند مخزرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعلكم من شجر أخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله سورة البركة الفاتحة.
पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलवान फातिहा थी सकीना कि ये सदा भाई, थी सकीना कि ये सदा भाई, दम निकलता है अब मेरा नहीं, मेरा जीना भी कोई जीना है, मेरा जीना भी कोई जीना है, सर पे बाबा है ना, चचा भाई, थी सकीना कि ये सदा भाई, मैं तो जाती इस बाबा की जाती हूँ पास बाबा के, सबका हाफिज है अब खुदा भाई, सबका हाफिज है अब खुदा भाई, मैं तो सी पाएगा, छोटी सी डाल दीजिए ये कोई विदा भाई, थी सकीना की ये सदा भाई, से सारा पर से सारा जाएगा रेहा भाई, कुनबा हो जाएगा रेहा भाई, माँ को नजदीक से हटा दीजिए, नजदीक से हटा दीजिए, माँ से देखा ना जाएगा भाई, अरे माँ से देखा ना जाएगा भाई, दम निकलता है अब मेरा भाई, मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलवात।
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير الخلق وخاتم أنبيائه ورسله سيدنا وشفيعنا بالقاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي أما بعد فقد قال سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومن كان يأتي به فليعمل عملا صالحا ولا يشرك بعبادة ربه أحدا صلوات Can everyone hear me? Is the mic working? Salawat. This community, our community, has a long-standing and a very good tradition of conducting the survey of the speaker who comes here for the Muharram Majalis. Many places in the academia, for example, they do this after course to evaluate the efficacy and the competency and the ability of the professor to be able to convey his message to the audience, to the students. And you'll be surprised, these evaluations are extremely helpful for the instructor in telling him what are his strengths, what are his weaknesses, and it's a very good tool for us to improve ourselves when we have another class. Should we change the syllabus, right? Where should we make adjustments that we can be much more effective in transmitting our message of the course? So I look at this evaluation very popular. It's completely anonymous, so you don't know who's said what, because otherwise you might take revenge on the students. And this is released only after the grades have been given. Once the grades are released, then they give us a copy, very elaborate copy of the evaluation with different graphs, just like you did in the survey. Also, the comments of all the students about the class. And I read them very carefully and attentively because it is a good tool for me to improve myself as a teacher. Very important. And therefore, what you have been doing, I've been doing it for many, many years. I remember when I came here for the first time when I was a student, there was a survey conducted and I was pleasantly surprised when I went back to Canada in those days. I was pleasantly surprised that I got a copy of the survey as to how I have done as a speaker. Very, very important and valuable, precious information put in there that I said is supposed to be a mechanism, a means for us to improve ourselves as instructors and as teachers. Salawat. Therefore, I was very happy and pleased and delighted when I saw the survey that was issued by your community decision that came by email. However, I was also disappointed that only 15 of you participated in this survey. There's a lot of effort that goes into preparing this survey, tabulating all the information, the data, making graphs, and so on. Therefore, there is no excuse not to participate. Oh, sorry. I thought that's what happens to all these things. Okay, all right. One of the things on the survey that I read a comment was that they really prefer the lapel pin mic compared to this mic because it is very clear in terms of the articulation and so on. So We are back to the old age again. Salawat. So for the sisters, I think the mic was turned off. My apology. And also, it's your fault because everybody said, you can hear me in the gen side. Anyways, I was talking about something that you do as a community that is so commendable and praiseworthy, and that is to do a survey of the speaker during the Muharram to make an evaluation. What are some of the positive things about the speaker, negative aspects? What have I learned? And this is a good tool for us as speakers to improve ourselves for next lectures. It is done extensively in the academia. It is something very common. We should not feel kind of, how should I say, we should not in any way be disinclined to do this. You say, well, how can we? I mean, I'm just a member of the audience. How can I evaluate the speaker? We are speakers. We are human beings like you. We are nobody. Don't think that all the knowledge resides in us. We may sometimes become egotistical, but that's not a fact. We are learning like you, evolving and improving ourselves. And this is an extremely important tool, like I said, the evaluation from the audience. And therefore, as I was saying, I was very pleasantly surprised and delighted when I got this survey of the Sijla by email. But I was equally disappointed that I saw only 15 people had participated. 60% male, 40% female. And that to me is a big surprise because this is your chance, especially the youngsters, especially you guys, right? Those who are in the young category, many a times, they have complained that I can't connect with the speaker. The subject was not intellectually, challenging for me and so on. He was not connecting with me and so on. This is your chance to be able to tell the board of directors that, listen, I would like to have, these are my comments and my suggestions for next speakers. This is your right, and they're giving you this opportunity. So if you don't do this, then you are in some ways delinquent. You are not participating in trying to help the community grow and also help us as speakers grow as we evolve as well. Salawat. Therefore, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you, how come you didn't fill out the survey questionnaire? But inshallah, next time that you have this opportunity, do not miss it. I mean, this is, like I said, your chance to tell us what we have done right, what we have done wrong, and also give us some suggestions for improvement. Nobody is perfect, and we are trying to evolve and to become better and better. Now, one of the interesting things was, one of the questions was, what some of the reasons that you attended this majalis in person? 57% said it's easier to pay attention. Equally, 57% said dinner is served nightly. So dinner, as an administration, is something, an important factor in pulling our members to the Islamic center. The other thing was very important. 78% said interacting with people. Digital age, social media age, where we have minimal contact with human beings. Human interrelations are no more available to the same extent they were available before the digital media. And therefore, this is an excellent forum for us to meet each other, interact, converse with each other, get to know each other better, and so on. The interaction is also very important. The administration now knows 78% find this interaction extremely valuable, and that's one of the reasons they are coming, not just for food. 78% is for interaction with other members of the community. Salawat. What was also very clear and evident was people are very happy with the way the committee is conducting the program in terms of organization, logistics, in terms of, the mic system, mailing you, emailing you information on time and so on. They were very happy with the logistics of the board. And that's something also very important for the board to know. How are we doing? Now, what was the age group? My time is running out, and I'm okay. 10 minutes have passed, but I think Maghrib is quite late. I was checking on your announcement. You have about 15-minute gap in between the last announcement and the prayers. Although I won't go over time, I don't want to scare you. What were the age categories in these demographics? 40% were 61 to 70 years old. Where are the youth? Where are the youngsters? They always complain, right? We don't get to get a good speaker. We have no input. Well, this is your chance to give us input and feedback to both the board of directors and also to us as speakers. 13.3% are over 70. So more than half, 53%, are over 60 years old. So you can see how the data is skewed now. It is not a very good data to base your judgment on because it is not a good pool of, candidates. It's a very limited data, and therefore it's very hard to extrapolate, to make conjectures and say, well, this is how the community wants us to move forward. It's very limited. So more than half are more than 60 years old. 33% are 41 to 50 years old. And only 13% are 51 to 60, and then 33% are from 41 to 50 years old. There's nobody below 40, below 41. And this is exactly the category of people, your constituency, that you want to target. They are the future generation who are going to carry on with this message, and you need to target that audience. But they never responded, unfortunately. And that is partly laziness, I think, and partly, whatever the reason may be. Maybe the food was so delicious, that you got preoccupied with food. I don't know. Or the conversation was so interesting. But I think normally the community gives you many days, a few days, at least a couple of days, I think, are given for you to fill out the questionnaire. And therefore, please do so next Muharram, if not earlier. Salawat. Now, if I had an opportunity, I would conduct a survey almost like every lecture, because every lecture has strengths and weaknesses and the delivery and the subject and so on. But anyways, even doing it once every Muharram is very valuable as well. I think you will agree that human beings have a tendency to become self-centered and egotistical. It's our nature. Moreover, there is a veil of self-love. We love ourselves, we are egotistical, we are self-absorbed, and therefore we try to cover up our shortcomings and our failings and failures, because this self-love obstructs us from seeing our faults. It's normal. And therefore, in the Islamic tradition, it is highly recommended to cross-examine ourselves. Be transparent, to interrogate ourselves on a frequent basis, as I said, because the veils of self-love and egoism always prevents us from detecting our faults and shortcomings. It's very normal, especially those of us who are religious, in the class of speaking and preachers. We have a very difficult time finding faults. I'm telling you very frankly. Because we believe that we are somehow so righteous and so virtuous and so pious and so holy. And this is part of ego. It is part of self-love. And it's part of delusion. It is not being realistic. Every human being has lots of faults, lots of shortcomings, and he or she must try to improve himself and be humble enough to say that, listen, for example, I don't know the answer to the question that you pose. I need to do some research and find out, and once I find out, I will let you know. But there are many aspects of knowledge that we are unaware of. The breadth of knowledge is very vast. You agree? We specialize in a very narrow field. Therefore, we may be completely unaware of other aspects of the Islamic tradition, the Islamic sciences, and therefore, self-examination is very important. Otherwise, you will not be able to detect your failings and your shortcomings. Salawat. I want to focus on a major shortcoming that the Prophet called ash-shirkul asghar, which is minor polytheism, sometimes referred to as shirk al-khafi, polytheism that is concealed, that is hidden. So something very serious. Not the shirk in terms of you worship idols, but there is another kind of shirk that goes undetected and is very subtle, and it remains hidden unless you are critical in your examination. This is what the Prophet said. He's surrounded by his companions and he says, Inna akhwafa ma akhafu alaykum ash-shirkul asghar. After my departure, the thing that worries me the most and I fear the most is that you are going to fall back and regress into ash-shirkul asghar, minor polytheism. Of course, the companions are very surprised. Oh, Prophet of God, we are with you. We have been with you all this time. We are completely loyal to you and we listen to you. We are obedient to you. We have given our... How do you think we'll go back to this polytheism? So it was kind of a surprise for them. So they asked the Prophet, وَمَا الشِّرْكُ الْأَصْغَرُ? What is this shirk, the minor shirk that you are referring to? And the Prophet said, Ar-Riya. Very interesting. I'll explain. Ar-Riya is to falsely claim that I'm very virtuous, I'm very pious, I'm very righteous in public. To make a public display of your goodness or your positive attributes to gain admiration, to gain reputation, to gain respect, to gain power sometimes, but it is a false display of one's iman or one's faith. I'll give you examples. Ar-Riya is, as I mentioned, to do things because the public is observing you. You would not do the thing in their absence. It is different from nifaq. A munafiq is somebody, for example, he never prays, but when he sees you and he wants to make a good impression on you, he is going to offer prayers in front of you, but in your absence, he will never pray. Now, this is munafiq. He might say, for example, I believe in this and I believe in that. He's only uttering it by the tongue because he has gain in this. But behind you, when you are not there, of course, he denies everything that he just told you. Now, that is a munafiq. And there is a surah in the Quran as well about munafiqun. And the Quran talks extensively about nifaq. But this is different from nifaq. Ar-Riya means the person is a believer. The person does pray. The person does fast. He does go to pilgrimage. He does all of these things, even if you are absent. Even if nobody is observing him or her, he is going to perform his prayers. Ar-Riya comes in when he does the particular act for public display, for public ostentation, for public admiration. This is Ar-Riya. For example, I'm praying, and then I hear somebody entering, I hear the door. So now I realize somebody is most likely observing me as to how I'm praying. So I slow down my speed. The pace of my prayer slows down. I choose a very long surah to impress the observer. I'm a very pious man. I'm a very holy man. I spend a lot of time in devotion to God. I choose a very long surah to impress the person that I know this surah by heart, and I spend a lot of time in prayers. I prolong my ruku, I prolong my sujood. This is referred to as ar-riya. I was going to pray anyways. But now that I have noticed somebody is observing me, I have to impress that person. because I want this message to spread that I'm a very virtuous man, I'm a very holy person, I'm so and so. This kind of desire for public admiration and this public display that you want to have reputation, this is referred to as ar-riya, salawat. Now, of course, we are all human beings and we do fall into this particular shortcoming. It's only natural, all of us. The only thing is that I'm trying to remind us that just be mindful when you do any act. You have to ask your heart, am I doing it solely for the sake of God, or am I doing it also partly for public display? This is why it is called shirk. Because now I'm praying for God, I'm also praying to impress the person who has now entered the mosque. So now there is corruption of intention. My intention is not exclusively and only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is partly also to impress you as an observer that I am a very pious person. This is why it is called a shirk. Polytheism means you are associating somebody in partnership with God. And if I'm doing something for public display, for public endorsement, for public respect, well, then the intention is not 100% for God. It has become partly adulterated and partly corrupted. Now, of course, we may never get to 100%. We are not infallible. At least it should be in our mind that be mindful. When we do something, there has to be complete synchronization, harmony between the intention and the act, between the heart and the way I'm performing that particular act. Salawat. There is a hadith on the authority of our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salatu afdhal salam, in which he says, إِنَّهُ مَنْ عَمَلَ لِلنَّاسِ كَانُوا ثَوَابُهُ عَلَى النَّاسِ. A person who does an act for public display, for public pleasure, كَانَ ثَوَابُهُ عَلَى النَّاسِ. Then on the day of judgment, those people should give him the reward. Don't expect reward from God because you did the act for the others. وَمَنْ عَمِلَ اللَّهَ كَانَ ثَوَابُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ. But somebody who performs a deed, an act for the pleasure of God, then of course God is the person who is going to give us the reward. In the hadith that I read to you, in which the Prophet told the companions, the hadith is a bit longer, it goes on, in which the Prophet says, on the day when people are being given their reward, إِذَا جُزِيَ النَّاسُ بِأَعْمَالِهِمْ, God will say, اذهبوا إلى الذين كنتم تراعون في الدنيا. Go and ask for your reward from those for whom you were doing this in public for their pleasure. فانظروا هل تجدون عندهم جزاء? It's a rhetorical question. Do you think they will be able to give you the reward that you are expecting? So it's another reminder for us that be mindful. In the Quran, in one of the surahs towards the end, the Quran denounces and criticizes those who are praying. I'm sure you know the surah. It says, فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ, Surah Al-Ma'un. It says, woe upon those who are praying, but they are praying, oh God. Why do you condemn them? الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. They are praying not diligently, they have another motive why they're praying. Another reminder for us. Another Quranic verse, it says in chapter 22, verse 11, خَسِرَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْخُسْرَانَ الْمُبِينَ. I mean, if you do these kinds of things, the Quranic verse says we will lose both this world and the hereafter. Be very careful, it says. Another verse that I read after the khutbah, it said, فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ. Somebody who desires to meet God, to see His face, فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا. Let him perform righteous deeds, good deeds. وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَتِهِ. And do not associate anyone with God in this good deed. أَحَدًا. Nobody should be there other than God. There's another Quranic verse which says somebody who does this, it talks about giving charity, sadaqat. In chapter 2, it says there are those who give sadaqah and then they remind the person that I've helped you. This causes pain to the person. It's a violation of human right. The Quran is saying, La tubtilu sadaqatikum. Don't make your sadaqah void. It becomes completely worthless. Bil manni wal adha. You remind them, you give pain to them. And then it uses the word that I just mentioned, ar-riya. Kalladhi yunfiku malahu ri'a an-nas. As if you are giving charity for the sake that public can observe you. So even the Quran has this concept of riya built into it. Salawat. Now there are different kinds of riya given by Faiz Kashani in one of his works. Many scholars actually have dealt with this issue because it is a common disease, a common shortcoming that we all have as human beings. He says that riya can be exhibited in our body, our physical body. For example, I will come to places in which I look kind of weak and tired and exhausted and my eyes are puffy and I don't know. I don't think any one of us does it, but anyways, Faiz Kashani said so, so I have to tell you. Pretending to be not eating a full meal, so he's very kind of lean, pretending that he's fasting. This is what they call riya of the body. He wants to display that I'm very weak and I'm a devotee of God. I spend all my time in worship of God. I don't eat properly. And that's why I'm so weak in terms of my physique. He may, for example, walk very slowly, the example that he gives. There is also riya of what he calls outward appearance and the types of clothes that we wear. For example, I may wear shabby clothes with patches and my hair may be disheveled. I may be holding a tasbih in my hand. I don't do this in private. That's the goal. I mean, the whole important point is this, that I don't do this in private. If I do it also in private, then it's perfectly fine. Then you are not doing a riya. A riya means there is a disconnect between the way you behave in privacy and the way you are behaving in public. So I carry tasbih in my hand, again, to tell people that I'm a very good devotee of God. I'm a worshiper. I spend my time in worshiping God. There is also riya of speech. Whenever I see people, I like to give them words of wisdom, words of advice, words of admonition. I do amr bil ma'ruf, nahy anil munkar. I talk about the shortcomings of other people and I say, astaghfirullah, I don't know, so-and-so has done this, and although it's ghiba, I say, may God protect him, may God forgive him, may God help him. All this is riya. If I'm doing amr bil ma'ruf for my self-promotion, to put myself on a higher pedestal, then I'm better than you. How come you make this kind of errors? I'm much better than you. This is not the meaning of amr bil ma'ruf at all. That's not the way our imams told us to do amr bil ma'ruf, but people do it. This is known as riya. There's also riya which is quite common, and that is riya of actions, where many of us fall into this particular trap. The example I gave you of namaz, prayers, is that when we are praying and if we are noticing somebody is observing us, we change the style of our prayers. We may show excessive humility, that I'm very humble, but outside of the mosque, I'm extremely arrogant. I don't listen to other people's opinions. They're called kibr. Arrogance is a very serious offense, moral offense in Islam. Takabbur. But when I'm with other people, I show I'm very humble, I'm very down to earth. But you should see me when I'm with my colleagues at school. I'm not prepared to listen to any critique. I know everything. This is known as a riya. That you have double personality or multi-personality. You behave one way in one place, and then you behave in another way in another place. This is just a joke. There was a gentleman who was doing riya of actions. Whenever he would visit a colleague's office, there were Muslims in that particular complex. Before sitting down, he would say, please don't offer me tea, I'm fasting. Nobody has offered him anything. But just he wants to announce that I'm fasting, recommended mustahab fast. This is known as riya. He says, please don't offer me any tea. Aslan bema China in Farsi, Don't give me tea. Man roze hastam emruz. I'm fasting. This is known as a riya. So if we, for example, announce this kind of acts of worship for public display and public reputation, then it is riya. If I brag about how many hajj I've done, how many ziyarat I've been, only for the sake of this admiration and reputation and respect, well, that is riya. If I say I've done X number of hajj, X number of umrah, X number of ziyarat to the ma'asumin, so one has to be very careful that the intention is important. As long as the intention is pure, of course, it's perfectly fine for you to say it. And there is riya of the fifth kind, he says, is riya by association. That is to say, I like to keep in the company of those who are powerful, those who are wealthy, those who are very religiously respected people, scholars, and so on. And I associate with them, hoping that some of that admiration will rub also onto me. So I say, for example, I invited so-and-so, a big shot, and he came to my house. He comes to my house all the time. I have his phone number. I just pick up the phone and he always replies to me. He's a very close friend of mine. And he's a big shot, let's say. We are all big shot, but he's a real big shot, let's say. In the sight of God, we are all big shot. We are all equal. But then in this society, we make others a bit higher in this particular hierarchy, in this ranking. So he wants to brag about, I'm in the company of these hot, these people. This is known as a riya. The important thing is, the motivation should come internally. Whatever we are doing, acts of God, acts of good deeds, it should always be motivated by our intent. Our internal motivation is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That does not mean that one should always abstain from making any mention of good works that he or she has done, because of fearful that, it's going to be misread as I'm trying to brag about this, I'm being ostentatious, I'm trying to display what I have done for charity or whatever it may be. No, that's not the meaning. There are times when it is even good, just as the Quran says, you must do charity both in openness and also in privacy. So there are many occasions where it is positive for you to mention that I'm doing these particular good deeds. As long as your intention is pure, it's perfectly fine. So I don't want you now to avoid, for example, when there is an opportunity to do a good deed, you say, well, I should not be announcing or mentioning. People may misread this. And, Mawani just mentioned last Majlis that anybody who says anything in public somehow is trying to promote himself. No, it is perfectly fine. What I'm trying to say is that The intention, the niyyah has to be khalis, has to be sincere, and has to be pure. Salawat. Somebody asked Ghazali, a 12th century Sunni scholar, they asked Ghazali that, what do I do? I mean, you mentioned all about this riya. So does it mean I should never do any kind of a good deed in public? He said, no. If you do this out of fear, you say, I won't do this in public out of fear of the way the people may read my intention. This itself is riya, he said. If I avoid a good deed out of fear of the people, then also it is riya, because riya means you are doing something for public pleasure. So if I avoid a good deed because I don't want to be disrespected by the public, this also is, in many ways, also becomes riya, says Ghazali. So you should do good deeds also in public, and there's nothing wrong at all as well. Salawat. Just a reminder, because this is something very subtle. Like I said, all of us are guilty of this particular shortcoming. It is very subtle, it is very kind of insidious, it creeps into us, and therefore it's always good just to remind ourselves and be aware that this particular shortcoming is prevalent in all of us. I lost track of time. How much time do I have? Oh, it's okay. You're just like in the Persian community, whenever I ask, even though I'm over time, they say, just keep on going. So I have time? Okay. Oh, okay, that's very good. Alhamdulillah. Salawat. Oh, okay, all right. Thank you very much. We must always remember that we are in a kind of jihad. We are struggling. You know, it is a struggle of the spirit, struggle of the soul, just like the Prophet, when he came from one of the battles, he said, Raja'na min al-jihad al-asghar. We have just come back from the minor jihad, and now we are entering jihad akbar. There is a greater jihad that now we have to fight, not just in the battle. The greater jihad is fighting against these negative tendencies that we have as human beings. It's part and parcel of the way we are created. And therefore, it is perfectly normal to have this tension within us where there are some positive and negative aspects, and we are trying to improve ourselves. And that is the key. Always try to evolve. Never reach a point of plateau. Never say that I have reached a plateau, that there is nothing in me to improve. That person is very ignorant. Actually, we refer to him as Jahlul Murakkab. He is compoundly ignorant. Any person who claims that I have attained such a high status that I don't need to do to improve myself, then that is a state of ignorance. Therefore, we always should admit that we are in a process of evolving, and that's the key, is that what the Prophet is saying is this particular struggle never ends. Up to our point of death, we need to continuously strive and struggle, because human being always falls back, he lapses. It's part of human nature. Look at the number of people who had followed Imam Hussein. But there are things that drags you on the other side as well, for a variety of reasons. One has to be very, very mindful that I'm always trying to improve myself and become a better human being. Imam Ali, in one of his statements, says that when you worship God, worship Him as if you see Him. That means you are completely connected with Him. He says when you do a good deed, you adore God, do it out of love for Him and Him only. Don't distort your intention. It's not possible to do it all the time, but Imam Ali is preaching to us that, listen, we can fall back, we can lapse. So when you are performing an act of devotion, do it exclusively for God. If you do so, you're actually a free person, he says. You're hur. You know, hur means free. It's ahrar, he says. You are doing the ibadah of ahrar. You are doing the ibadah of somebody who is free. He's not chained by anything. At the same time, Imam says there are people who pray to God out of expectation and out of anticipation, of course, of paradise, the reward. It's acceptable. But the Imam says this is the worship of somebody who is a merchant. He's a tajir. He's trying to negotiate with God. He's transactional. He's saying, oh God, I'll do this, but also I'm expecting a full reward on the Day of Judgment. Doesn't mean he would not have performed otherwise, but this is the motivator. If you look at the Quran in the 7th century, the Quran frequently talks about these punishments. Punishments, scorching punishment of hell. The paradise that is full of all these blessings. Water, in desert there was no water. Talks about water that is flowing. And you have all these fruits and figs and I don't know, grape. It talks about, to a large extent, on these kinds of issues. It doesn't mean, in my view, that God wants to terrify us and to scare us, to worship Him only because we are fearful of Him. He doesn't want to inspire fear into us. I think it was the context of 7th century. The Arabs of that time understood this message. The Arabs of 7th century, for example, when the Quran brings in camels in the Quranic verse, al-ibl, it is because the Arabs could associate with that kind of an animal. In the 7th century, this was a good method of teaching them, of convincing them, of bringing them towards Islam, and then gradually they would do these acts as a free human being, out of love. But it was a mechanism, a method, a tool. It is a contextual document. Why do you think there are so many Quranic verses that talk about things that only a businessman will talk about? Mizan, I don't know. God says, trade with me. Who will give me a goodly loan? I will transact with you. Well, the Arabia of that time, the people of Arabia, the Quraysh, they were tradesmen. They were people of business. They used to take usury, for example. And the Quran says, don't take usury. Don't take riba. It's a great sin. Well, it was transactional negotiating in a very business environment, and therefore some of the verses in the Quran are very contextual. It has to be. If the Quran comes in a particular language to a particular people that it's talking about, it has to be able to communicate with them. Otherwise, the Quran would become unintelligible. At the same time, the same Quranic verses can be applied for us as long as we can also extrapolate and extrapolate from the Quranic verses. We can't apply them exactly the way it was applied in the 7th century. Salawat. Do you agree with me? It is very interactive. The Prophet says, yes, alunak, they ask me. That means somebody asked him a question. And now he's going to respond. So it is very much interactive, and therefore the response is going to be contextualized by the question that was asked by the person. The question that is asked by the person is contextual. I would ask a different question in this century. That person in the 7th century has another kind of a question, and therefore it is contextual. There are Quranic verses that are what we call contextual. There are Quranic verses that are transhistorical. They can be applied everlastingly, especially on morals and ethics, on principles, on aspects of justice. All these issues transcend time. They transcend history. They transcend location. And they can be applied in all places, under all circumstances, because they are universal principles. But there are certain aspects that are contextual because, like I said, the Quran is interacting with the community of the Arabs. The question that he is going to ask is going to be different than the question that I would have asked. There is a surah in the Quran, I don't know if I mentioned, in which one of the lady complains to Prophet that I complain against my husband. The way he divorced me is completely unjust, improper. She comes and tells the Prophet. Well, the Quranic verse is revealed. God says, I've heard the lady who has complained to you, O Prophet, and she is discussing with you. And the answer is this. So that means the question was posed because there was a particular practice of Jahiliyyah, of divorce, that doesn't exist now, but it did exist in the 7th century. And therefore, the wife is upset and complains. Imagine, the Prophet was so reachable, so affable. He didn't create any fear amongst people. Isn't it lovely that a lady from a non-prestigious family, tribe, comes to the Holy Prophet listens to her and says, what is your issue? And she presents the issue, and he didn't say, oh my God, how dare you complain? How dare you ask this question? How dare you disrespect your husband? No, he listened. And that's very, very interesting for me, is that we should make sure that we are very reachable, approachable. We are not distant, that I am somebody. To reach me, you have to go through many hoops. And then only you can find me. Without all these hoops and channels and agents, you can't find me. This is not how the Prophet behaved. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Let me conclude on this subject of a riya by taking us back to the episode, the Kerbala episode. You know, the narrative of Kerbala provides us innumerable lessons that we can extract. One of the lessons is a riya. Don't do things because of public display, public pleasure. Your tongue must be completely in harmony with your heart. Don't be dual-faced. Don't wear a mask. Try to be who you are, transparent. Imam Hussein was seeking this. You know, Imam Hussein told his companions at every point when there was bad news coming from Iraq, he would inform them. This has happened. Be very sure. You want to stay with me? You are not obliged. You are not obliged to stay with me. But if you want to stay with me with sincerity, without a riya, without feeling a sense of obligation, stay with me. He even told the sons of Aqil, when the message came about Muslim na Aqil, you are free to go. I release you from this bay'ah. Your father has paid a heavy price already. A riya. They said no. And they proved themselves that there is not riya. Until the final moment, there was no riya in them. Very interesting. Until the very last night, Shab Ashura, the Imam is again testing their iman. I don't want riya. The Imam says a beautiful statement in the darkness of the night, in which I read for you. The Imam says, فَإِنِّي لَا أَعْلَمُ أَصْحَابًا أَوْفَى وَلَا خَيْرًا مِنْ أَصْحَابِي. I don't know of any companions who have been more loyal and more faithful and more virtuous than my companions. وَلَا أَحْلَ بَيْتِ أَبَرَّ وَلَا أَوْصَلَ مِنْ أَحْلِ بَيْتِ. Nor an Ahl Bayt who have been more pious and more connected to me than my Ahl Bayt. فَجَزَاكُمُ اللَّهُ عَنِّي خَيْرًا. May God on my behalf reward you handsomely. أَلَا وَإِنِّي أَظُنُّ يَوْمًا لَنَا مِنْ هَؤُلَاءِ. I think today is the last day. I don't think these people are going to give us another day. وَإِنِّي قَدْ أَذِنْتُ لَكُمْ فَانْطَلِقُوا. I give you permission to disperse, to go away. I've given you permission. جميعا, all of you. في حل ليس عليكم حرج من ولا ضمام. There is no obligation on you. I take away the bay'ah away from you. You are free to go. هذا الليل قد غشيكم فاتخذوه جملا. Take this night as a cover and disperse. Go away. فاتخذوا Take it as a ride, as a camel. وليأخذ كل رجل بيد رجل من أهل بيتي. And take the hand, each person take the hand of another member of Ahl Bayt. وتفرقوا. And spread out. في سوادكم ومدائنكم, in different villages, in different towns. فإن القوم إنما يطلبوني. The Imam says, because this community, these people are only after me. They are seeking only me. ولو قد أصابوني لهو أن طلب غيري. And once they capture me, they get me, they are no longer going to pursue anybody else. And therefore the Imam is saying, this is I'm releasing you. No riyah. Take the night. And we all know the response of different people. Hazrat Abbas, the sons of Aqil, Zuhair ibn Qayn, Muslim ibn Awsaja, they all gave a beautiful response that should be etched in our memory. I just give you one response of Abbas. Hazrat Abbas said, لِمَا نَفْعَلُ ذَلِكَ. He says, Imam, why would we ever do this? لَنَبْقَى بَعْدَكَ. To live after you have departed from this life? Not possible. لَا أَرَانَ اللَّهُ ذَلِكَ عَبَدًا. May God never bring this day upon us where you are gone and we are still alive. The purest of the pure. فَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. Salawat. Let us make a small dua before we have the next program. There are many in our community, in our family, in our relatives, our friends who are sick. Especially, I want to remember our dear brother Jamil, who has done tremendous service to this community, and I understand he is in ill health. Oh God, all these people are in desperate need of your power of healing. We implore you, O God, to restore full health to all of those who are sick. Restore justice in this very violent and very cruel world. People are facing unimaginable hardship, O God. We ask you to ease their suffering. We ask you to grant them safety. We ask you to grant them patience. We ask you bring for them relief and justice and peace. O God, replace their hardship with hope and mercy. O God, make us not among those who remain silent and indifferent in the face of grotesque human suffering around the world. O God, protect us from hopelessness and despair in the face of injustice, oppression, and suffering. O God, endow us with clarity in our mission in life. Infuse us with compassion. And finally, give us tawfiq to follow the guidance contained in the Quran and follow the footsteps of the Ma'asumeen. Salawat.
बानु ने रोकर कहा आओ मदद को यहाँ ए मेरे मुश्किल खुशा निकला फातिमा जहरा चलो पोती को दफनाने को ए हसन ने मुझ तबा निकला जनाजा है ये ए शाहे करबो बला आज कहाँ हो बला आओ खबर लो जरा निकला जनाजा है ये हाय सकीना मेरी कैद में है मर गई घर मेरा सुनसान हुआ निकला जनाजा है शाम में सैदानी का निकला जनाजा है ये पीटो सरहले अज़ा निकला जनाजा है ये सकीना करती है जारी मेरे बाबा मेरे बाबा मैं तेरी लाश परवारी मेरे बाबा मेरे बाबा है सकीना करती है जारी सुनो अहवाल तुम मेरा कि मुझ पर क्या हुआ तुम बिन तुम्हारी थी जो मैं प्यारी मेरे बाबा मेरे बाबा ऐसा की करती है सितम गर गर में घुस आई कयामत हम पे ये लाई हुई कैदी मैं बिचारी मेरे बाबा मेरे बाबा ऐसा की ना करती है जारी मुझे छाती लगा लो तुम मुझे गोदी उठा लो तुम मैं चिल्लाती हूँ दुखियारी मेरे बाबा मेरे बाबा ऐसा की ना कर ती है जारी मेरे बाबा मेरे बाबा मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलवात
Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. I wanted to take a moment to thank Dr. Hamid Mawani for gracing us again with his beautiful lecture. It's always an honor to have you here, and we'd love to see you again more often as well, too. So thank you so much. I'd also like to request us to all recite Surah Yasin for Marhuma Sara Mawani, and also all other marhumins, please. Just a quick reminder that there are donation boxes in the ladies section and in the men's sections. They're plastic containers, and those were brought over by the Hussein campaign. We're collecting canned goods for donations to those who are in need. So please, whenever you have a chance, just if you have any cans or if you go to the grocery store, grab a couple cans and drop them off at the center, please. Tomorrow at 3 p.m., we will be commemorating the Wafat of Bibi Sakina as well. It's another majlis sponsored by the Fazl family. The program begins at 3 p.m. Again, 3 p.m. tomorrow. And then the Usher Zainabiyya program will start on Saturday, August 1st, and will continue all the way through Tuesday, August 4th, which will be Arbaeen Day. The program on Saturday will start at 6 p.m. And if you check your emails, if you scroll down to the bottom, it has the full program outlook all the way through September 19th. So you can plan accordingly and see what programs we have and approximately what time we'll be having those programs. Our Ashrei Zainabiyya program, we will be honored by having Sheikh Mehdi Hazri from South Carolina. He'll be joining us to provide us with lectures for those 4 days. And lastly, we're always trying to enhance our communication with our members. So if you look at the projector, you'll see there's a QR code there. Go ahead and scan that QR code. It'll enable you to opt into SMS text messaging, which will allow us to send you day of program reminders. We're not going to inundate you with a lot of messages, but just the day of, just a reminder, the program starts at 6 o'clock tonight, or if there's any other community events that are going on. Just another way for us to get the membership to know what's happening with the center, program change, or just a reminder that there's a program tonight. And then lastly, we will take a break for namaz, and then we will conclude the night with niyaz. Ziyarat, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله السلام عليك بيبي خديجة الكبرى السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك بيبي فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين السلام عليك يا إمام حسن مجتبى يا ابن رسول الله السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي خلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليك بيبي زينب الداغية وكلثوم المرضية والسكينة المسبيحة. السلام عليك بيبي أم البنين وحضرة عباس. السلام عليك يا شهداء كربلاء وسيران كربلاء جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك إمام علي بن الحسين زين العابدين ومحمد بن علي الباقر وجعفر بن محمد الصادق وموسى بن جعفر الكاظم وعلي بن موسى الرضا يا غريب الغرباء. السلام عليك بيبي فاطمة معصومة. السلام عليك يا إمام محمد بن علي التقي الجواد وعلي بن محمد الحاد النقي والحسن بن علي الزكي العسكري. السلام عليك بيبي نرجس خاتون. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان. الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن وخليفة الرحمن وقابة الإيمان وإمام الإنس والجان. أجل الله تعالى فرجه وسهل الله مخرجه وظهور الأمر. السلام عليك يا أهل البيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه عرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. الله
Well, the good news is I'm not a doctor. I'm just died in January. Okay, no. Maybe bad people, you know, straight into a fight. Oh.
And then yeah. Okay, yes, inshallah. Thank you.
You run away since the year of having something like doesn't even hold weight. No.
And next Saturday is 8 to 8. So that's why we're supposed to have first. We got an email from the timing. Every I don't mean it's early. This thing. Why he has one in his house? Because he's. I don't have my house, but I buy for his shit. Let's try to put it checks out. I will checks out. No. No, you know. I will checks out. What are you again? Ciao, no. Because we check I know. Always the cook at the bottom of the plate. Next time happen.
I'll call you right back on my email. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولله الحمد الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله هيا على السلام هيا على السلام حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل، حي على السعيد. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله، لا إله إلا الله.